listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all north of here in a shopping mall.
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553 on this chilly May, nearly June Saturday morning. Good morning, Debbie Moore. Tell me what is going on.
Well, good morning, Ron. Today is the Main Street Cleveland Car Show, and when we were having breakfast, a good breakfast down at the Spot Restaurant, we saw cars already coming in. I believe officially it may start at noon to 6 o'clock, but I suggest you go about before 4 o'clock, because a lot of times it gets late in the afternoon, those folks get hungry and they just leave.
Sitting out in front of the Spot this morning was a red, around a 1947, 6, 7, 8 Bel Air
50
convertible,
50 something, I think, Ron.
That'd be a 40. Anyway, whatever year it is,
it was pretty.
it was one pretty car, as Deb says. So, that's some of the things you'll see down there. The Cleveland Speedway will be running on Saturday nights now, so they do have a race tonight. As long as it don't come a big rainstorm here today, which they've had a lot of bad luck with that this year, but that will be happening.
They're having excellent races down there, too. They've got the track fixed and things are going. If you need fish for your pond, today is Fish Day. There's no better way to spend your 50th anniversary than selling fish at the Farmers Co-op. Go down there and see Marilyn and T. Bandy from 11 to noon today. If you don't have containers, they'll have some there for you. It's a great time to stock your pond.
If you'll go buy fish, T can afford to buy Marilyn a gift.
There you go.
That's what it is. Right now she's getting bass.
Carp.
Yeah.
She's getting carp for her anniversary. But again, we'd like to say happy anniversary to them. 50 years is quite an accomplishment. Today, we're going to be talking about historical markers. And
didn't we just do this?
We did.
But,
well, we did this. No one heard it.
Well, it was you and I. Is that correct English, sir? We have a professor here. We had to be you and I and Brian. It was actually you and Brian and I did a show on markers, but the radio station blew up that day. So we talked.
Thingamajig broke.
We sit here and talk. So we've practiced this show pretty good. So we're going to do it again, let you hear it, because it's pretty darn interesting. I know Deb recently done a presentation at the Rotary Club about the markers, and people are pretty amazed about and to hear about these things. So
I know there's this little book, Ron, called Tennessee Historical Markers that you can order from the Tennessee Historical Commission. You go online and request it. Now, when we ordered this one about 4 years ago or so, it was had not been updated since 1996, so you may get the exact same book, but it was like $4, $3 or $4 to get it shipped to you. Some pretty interesting reading. But what's the sad part of this book, Ron?
Well, the sad part is that Bradley County has 9 listings, and Monroe County has 18. McMinn County has 9 or 10, and we're just not well represented in the state in our history. That's one of the things.
Well, we do not have the markers, but we have the history.
That's it. There are several. The 9 that are listed in the book. 4 of those are missing now, and so. And then of course there's a couple that's not listed in the book yet. The Bradley High School, that class of 64, 54, 50.
The late 50s, yeah.
See, Eddie Cartwright's
It's Eddie
class.
Cartwright's class.
Well, that's a 47 then. Back it on up a little bit there. They actually bought a sign and put it up there. And then there's the Lee University, which I don't know if that's a...
We think that's a bicentennial sign,
Might be.
and it was one that looks like the Tennessee Historical Signs, but it's not listed with the Tennessee Historical Society.
Glad it's marked.
The only problem with that is that it's not listed in the book, and if you're a crazy historian like all of us in the room that go around and look at these signs, you don't know where it's at.
Well, if you're just out on a Sunday drive and you're looking for history and you do that, and some people, if nothing else, we need to mark these history because some of this stuff is pretty important. Now, looking through that book, there's some of that stuff go, why did that get listed? Well, they could prove the history part of it, and most likely, and today's date is if you want a sign approved, you can send it to the state, and they'll put it on their list, and someday they may put it up, or you can pay for it.
Well, still, even if we
but you have
have
to prove the history part.
they have to approve the history part, which might take up to a year. But it's, and we've done that before. It's kind of hard to do, but you can do it with the right paperwork and stuff. Ron, we have Brian Reed today with us, history professor from Cleveland State Community College. How long have you been out there now, Brian?
I'm starting my 20th year this fall.
No.
Yes.
And see, Brian...
I thought you was only like 27. though.
Brian actually went to Lee and participated in the archaeological dig that went on at the Blythewood Farms. And I was asking about it one day, and he said he was young and didn't have his mind on that dirt too much at the time, so he couldn't tell me very much about it. But he was there, and his name's listed on, as being one of the, I'll call them diggers.
Yeah.
And then we also have a local author with us, Debbie Riggs, and she's going to be talking about a book that she wrote about Cleveland and a monument that's involved with that, and how that monument and Thaxton, Virginia, is all related to one another. And we had the privilege this week that Ron and Deb and I, along with about 10 other people from Cleveland, flew up to Thaxton, Virginia for that monument dedication. And we'll talk about the relationship there. And then we probably will have to explain why that soldier's standing in the middle of the road at 8th and 8th and Ocoee and Broad Street, because a lot of times people don't quite understand the significance of that monument. So we're going to be talking about all those things today.
So the monuments, we have very few monuments in our area. Of course, not every town has multiple monuments, but coming to mind, I think of 3 monuments in our community.
Okay. What are those, Ron?
Well, the Confederate Monument at 8th,
Mm-hmm.
the Thaxton train wreck, the Marshall Steed and Hardwick Monument standing next to that. Those two things have nothing to do with each other.
Most of my life, until I really started studying history, I thought that smaller monument that most people don't notice at all, although it's not a small monument, is just dwarfed standing there next to our Confederate soldier. I thought it was part of the Confederate monument.
Most people do, and most people didn't even realize there were 2 there until, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess,
It jumped out in front of a car.
a car hit it and it broke it. And so, but the 3rd monument, Brian, do you know where it would be?
He has no idea. He can't read your mind.
It's at Fort Hill.
The GAR,
Oh,
the
the
GAR.
The G-
Brian, tell everybody what the GAR monument is.
Yeah. Well, it was a veterans group, a Union veterans group. The Grand Army of the Republic is what it stands for. And it was named after a Clevelander. He wasn't from Cleveland, but he resided here at the time. His last name was Oviatt.
Uh-huh.
And
Good Cleveland name.
It was dedicated to sort of his group, because he was the founder of the GAR. They were primarily both a civic, sort of a fraternal organization, but they were also very political in trying to get benefits for veterans after the Civil War.
Right. It was quite a movement. But now, how many Grand Army of the Republic signs are they in the state of Tennessee?
Only 3.
Only 3. And we have one of them.
And most people don't realize it's there. If you turn just before you get to what we call the old Coke plant, it's now Conley Electric.
And thanks to him, he's really. Have you seen the mill houses that he's remodeling down there? Yeah. Fabulous.
If you go up that hill, it's going to be on your left. Right, I'm trying to picture exactly, but it's on the left as you go up that hill there. Yeah. Right as you enter into Fort Hill at that point.
Most people that know that there are three, they don't know where the other two are. There's one in Knoxville, and there's one at Stones River, where the battlefield was in Murfreesboro.
I'm going to answer my phone ding here. Somebody's at Fort Hill wants to know where that monument is. If you will go to where Village Tire sits and go up that street.
It's Worth Street.
It's Worth Street into the cemetery. It's right there beside the one that's a modern marble one that says Fort Hill on it.
It's right there at that
It's
area.
not very flashy.
It's the main entrance.
It has the names of soldiers from Bradley County that were Union, or is it the members of the group?
Names. There's no names.
There's no names?
No.
I thought it had names on it.
Too many to list, I think.
Well, that's
too many Union soldiers to list. But it just says for the Bradley Boys in Blue, that served.
Now, the thing about that monument is I've seen really old pictures of it, and apparently somewhere along the way somebody did some work on it. Did not damage it as far as I'm concerned. It probably could stand a little bit of cleaning, but please don't anybody go up there and wash it with a power washer, please. It just needs to be scrubbed down with a soft brush and rinsed off really good or something like that. But the cemetery has really tried hard to preserve that monument.
So let's say most people didn't realize that that's only three. Now we do have a statue now of Benjamin Cleveland.
Yes.
Thanks to the
a lot of hard work.
Thanks to the Sons of the American Revolution, the Benjamin Cleveland chapter. It was about a $50,000 venture to build that nice statue. So that's pretty much our statues and our that. Now, not talking about the monuments in Fort Hill. I mean, some of the are some very nice places there, but actually monuments that's there. Debbie, tell us about the Confederate monument. You know quite a bit about that.
Okay, the Confederate monument was erected by the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution, in 1911.
Daughters of the Confederacy.
United Daughters of the Confederacy.
I'm sorry, yes.
I got you confused on that.
MOUSE, yeah. It's all these letters we're having to remember this morning.
It was Daughters of the Confederacy. Actually,
which at that time were really the daughters of the Confederacy. They were really the daughters and the granddaughters of the soldiers.
And they had a cookbook for sale to raise part of the funds.
Wow, have you actually seen one of those cookbooks?
No, I know where a copy is available, and we're hopefully going to reprint it.
Oh, good.
Oh, very good. Got some good recipes?
You would like them, Ron.
Oh, well, I like food.
They probably have lard and stuff in them.
No, actually.
How much did it cost, that monument cost?
$3,000, I think.
Isn't that
$3,500
I thought
or something.
It was in that 3,000 range, what I'd read.
Which was a tremendous amount of money.
Oh, absolutely.
And what year was this?
1911, I believe.
Yeah. See, it was on the 50th anniversary of the beginning of the war, is what I think. And then there was very little controversy about what it was supposed to look like, but it caused a lot of controversy. Deb, what happened?
Yeah. Well, we almost had a second Civil War in Bradley County. When they put the Confederate monument up, they decided that the, quote, boys' monument,
which is the small monument that got hit by the car,
looked very insignificant. So they just had it took down and thrown over to the side of the road.
And there's actually a negative. I know there's a negative, and there may be a photograph of it laying over on the side of the road.
I've been looking for that. I haven't found it yet.
Well, you know how you see things and then you don't know where you saw them? And it's always when I'm not looking for it that I find it. But I think what was kind of funny, too, is these nice Southern ladies raised all this money but didn't really have a plan where that monument was going to go.
Right.
Yeah.
And they thought, that looks like a good spot. We'll just use it. And they put theirs up.
Yep.
And then
it did not go over well.
No.
It wasn't the monument itself. It's the fact they taken the little one down and throwed it over to the side.
Correct.
It was just laying over on the side of the
David,
road.
if I'm not, tell the people what that little monument is. So, I mean, some people if we've had a lot of publicity about it recently, and the car hitting it, and the Thaxton thing. Tell us what that monument was put there and when it was put there.
It was erected around 1890. In July of 1889, 3 young men from Bradley County was going on a trip of a lifetime. They was going to Paris. That's for the World's Fair. The Eiffel Tower was being revealed that year. And then they was going to go through Europe and then to the Holy Land for a visit.
These are wealthy Clevelanders.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I think there was 12,000 people showed up to see them off.
2,000.
Well, okay. I was making
Bradley
it up.
County wasn't quite
Okay.
12,000.
That makes
back
better
then.
sense. I knew there was a 2 in that somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our reporter, our out on the street reporter at the cemetery, does indeed say there's no names on that monument. I must have dreamed that, but it was erected. The GAR was erected in 1914.
1914.
we thank our reporter on the street.
And probably an answer to the monument that put up in 1911, I'd say. So now, the 3 people that were,
Will Steed,
all right,
John Hardwick, and Will Marshall.
and John Hardwick was C.L. Hardwick's son. And
And
C.L. Hardwick was a very prominent citizen.
Yes.
For that. And the Marshall and Steed family. And now 2 of them's bodies was never found in the train wreck that killed them, right?
Correct.
And one of them is buried at Fort Hill.
Yeah, Will Steed is buried at Fort Hill. And thanks to Brian, I have a picture of the marker.
So that is, 3 Clevelanders was killed in a train wreck in Thaxton, Virginia,
Yes.
at a creek. And then, like we said earlier, is that Deb and I and Debbie and about 11 other people from Cleveland flew to Thaxton, Virginia. The Alan Jones Foundation helped pay for the sign there in Thaxton. They put up big signs. I mean, their signs are a lot bigger than ours.
Yes.
And you can read the name from a long distance on the sign, which I like. You can see it. I know as I get older, as we drive by the Tennessee ones, I don't know what it said. I said, there's a marker.
And what did it say as he goes by
Yeah.
at 55 miles per hour?
But it was big, and so they had a cookout there. There's a school called the Thaxton Elementary School, which ends like this week.
yeah, it'd
Yeah.
been open, 1927 to
Something like that, yes.
to 2015.
This was the
And the children were disappointed that their school was being closed. I
Yeah.
thought that was real sweet.
and their school was they were the engineers,
Yes.
and so
I looked the school up, and the logos are all trains.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool.
You know, I think the really eerie part of the trip on Tuesday was the fact that we flew into Roanoke, and Thaxton's a little town like. Well, we didn't see. I don't. We may have seen downtown, and I didn't realize it. It was, it was a small community like Charleston or something like that. And there was convenience stores and lots of pretty houses and stuff. But as we came in, I realized that the railroad tracks were running parallel to where we were driving, and you have to think back at that time when those young men were on that train. And this was their opportunity, that they were leaving the small town of Cleveland, and they had letters of introduction to big businesses in New York City, and they were going to go to Paris to see the brand new Eiffel Tower, and they were basically making their way out into the world. But instead, they end up dying in some field that we could see from the sign site that night. And it was kind of an eerie feeling, I thought, that you're thinking that you were traveling that same
I think
path.
the eerie thing is, they had bagpipes playing, and and there were some speeches from some Virginia's. There was a state legislator there.
Mm-hmm.
He told about it. Those people who put up the signs there. Then the person who wrote the book about the Thaxton train wreck,
Michael Jones.
Michael Jones.
And what is the name of that, Debbie?
Lost at Thaxton.
Lost at Thaxton, and I got my copy on Amazon.
It's also available on Kindle.
On Kindle,
Oh,
okay.
Yes.
Basically, what happened is it rained in Thaxton, Virginia for days and days, and they thought it was the next flood coming, and all the streams were flooding. And this was a little stream that was over 23 foot deep when the water was coming through, and the person who was supposed to clean out the culverts got stuck in his house, and he was in the second story of his house because the water was coming up the steps. And he couldn't get out to go clean out the culvert, so the water backed up. It washed away the trestle, the sides of the hill and everything. The train ran off in it, caught on fire. They picked up all the bodies and put it in 1 or 2 baskets, the parts that they could find, and the rest were just burned. C.L. Hardwick's son, John Hardwick, was never found, and he walked the tracks. He actually went up there looking for his son.
For days.
So so basically there's the tie to Thaxton, Virginia, to Cleveland, Tennessee, and that probably wouldn't have happened if someone had ran into the monument up there, because it was the worst train wreck in the history of Virginia, and it had never been marked.
Now, prior to that, I want to ask Debbie. Debbie wrote a book about the little monument. It's called The Day Cleveland Cried. The Day Cleveland Cried. You can get a copy of that down at the Museum Center. And when you go in the Museum Center, tell them you heard us talking about them. But anyway, Deb, how did you get interested in this story?
I lived at the History Branch.
And on the third shelf over, right?
Yes. And Chuck Sherrill approached me one day, and
now Chuck's been gone from Cleveland for 25 years, right?
Yes.
So this was quite a while ago.
This was in '96.
Okay.
95, somewhere in through there, and he asked me. He handed me 2 legal sheets that was double spaced and had a bunch of blanks, just a few words here and there. He said, "I'm interested in the monument out front. Find me some information."
Mm-hmm.
And I turned him over about 15 typed sheets, and my curiosity was piqued, you know. And one day I was in the library, and we got a donation of scrapbooks from Hardrick family, or a relation of the Hardrick family. And I was privileged to scan through them and look, and there was all kinds of newspaper clippings and everything on the wreck. And I went, oh, whoa, I need copies.
And it's one of those things, if you don't know the exact date of the newspaper, you have to go and you have to scroll and look. And sometimes that newspaper might be missing from the photographed ones. And if you're like me, you get highly distracted looking at newspapers, because I start looking at the ads. And there was no rules back then. If somebody in town had, robbed somebody, they just printed their name, or if they everybody's ailments were listed right there.
This is a good point. If your family unfortunately passes away and there's old scrapbooks in there, don't throw them in garbage can.
No, please no.
Take them to the library. Bring them down here to Whoop Radio and give them to.
I'll take them.
Oh yes,
anyone.
Because we love to look at those old things. The other day we got. Is there 5,000 negatives?
Over 5,000, I would think. That's
a photographer from the area cataloged all his negatives on all his photos, and there's about 5,000 negatives, and a little bitty negative reader come with it. And
a handmade.
Someday, somehow, we will get through all those 5,000 negatives, because we've read about them, and we think they're from White County, McMinn County. We think they're in Cleveland. We
Ray
just don't
County.
know yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of different pictures in there. At some point in time, he worked for a bunch of related newspapers that he would take a picture, and an article would run in several newspapers with that one picture. But he at least has them cataloged, and we have names on them and stuff, but we just don't know.
But
it's not like 19.
We understand there's a mechanism now that you can actually put the negatives in, and it will scan it and bring it up on your screen immediately. Not like just a scanner, but it actually reads them and converts them for you instantly. Now, I got to find me one of those. USB, boom, you're done.
It works cool.
Do you have one?
Yes.
Oh, no, we may have to come to your house and show you.
We'll bring you these 5,000 negatives, and you look at them and tell us what we have.
So
they're on our dining room table now.
But
and one of them's in a big paper box, and another box about that size.
Once again, we'd like to thank the Alan Jones Foundation and Alan for being. Alan loves history, and we really appreciate the plane ride and the.
Let's get back to this book. I'm sorry, I got us off on a rabbit trail.
No,
so you found the scrapbooks and started going through them.
Yes, and it was. I don't know, shocking. How the town came together,
Did you know the little monument was something else before you read that?
No, I always knew what it was. We had a dear family friend, Frank T. Hardrick, who was probably the grandson of CL.
Yeah.
And he was told us he would take my brother and myself to town and just around and share stuff with us.
Well, that's
And
great.
one day he told us, he said, now the small monument here is in memory of 3 boys that was killed. One of them was my uncle. And he never elaborated on the story. And I don't know, I was 9 years old maybe. So maybe he thought it was
It plants
too-
a seed, though. It does.
Yes. Maybe
Well,
he
I
thought it
think
was
the
too graphic.
amazing thing is that you had these. I mean, you had a couple thousand people just show up to tell these boys bye, and then when they died, oh my gosh, at the outpouring.
Yeah.
Do we have a call?
No.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
we're going to open the phone. Here.
Okay.
Just a second.
I'm sorry, I don't
But
always
you
see
know
flash.
what's eerie is I think it was John Hardrick had dreams that they was all 3 killed. He had those
He
dreams.
almost didn't go.
right.
He
went for
almost didn't go.
3 nights, and he said last night it was more vivid than any other time.
And they had like morning doors downtown that they had the 3 pictures of the boys up, and the businesses were draped with black cloth, and
The book is called the Day That Cleveland Cried. It's down at the Cleveland Museum. The proceeds go to the Cleveland the museum at 5
Yes.
Point. Is that?
Yeah.
again another Jones Foundation
Right.
donation.
You're listening to Whoop FM. This is Old Town Cleveland. You can go to www.whoopfm.com also, and you can see. We're going to open the phones now. You can call us here at 614-5553. We got Debbie Riggs, Brian Reed here. We're talking about monuments and historical markers, and we're going to talk about the ones we have, the ones that are missing, and the ones that we probably should get something done about. The
And
areas
the
and
ones
things
going
that
up.
people.
the thing that I
Yeah,
like
one going
about
up here.
I think about Deb's book is that she's got nice colored pictures in there. She has a picture of the actual train wreck site
Yes.
when the trains were still all there. And the other day it was such an eerie feeling that we walked just a short distance up the road, and we could stand and you could see that terrain. You knew that was the exact spot where that train wreck had happened.
And I think Reverend Miller from Broad Street Methodist Church was with us. He gave the invocation, and as he finished and said amen, the train whistle blowed and a train went by. Talking about, I said,
That was kind of eerie too.
Reverend Miller's connected. He's really connected.
We had a great time. And then, but I just thought and so all of this comes together because of an accident.
Yes.
The monument, unfortunately, got hit by a car and got broken. All of a sudden, everybody's talking about that monument that nobody knew anything about.
And the history comes around, and then people say, "Oh, I don't know about the history." And when we talk about these historical markers with a lot of gusto, because people go, but it's surprising things that you can do. Brian, tell us about what's happening in Charleston right now.
But I wasn't finished with that story.
Well, go ahead, tell it. Then.
Well, when the car wreck happened and the monument
Yeah.
got broken, everybody started talking about it, and so Alan James said, "Well, my wife and I'll just take a trip to Thaxton to see this and to see the spot." Well, he calls the author of the Lost at Thaxton and said, "Okay, where's that site?" And the guy started explaining to him where it was, but there was no marker there. What do you mean there's no marker there? And so that's what started all of this. And Deb's book helped bring it to light too, because she had done this research so many years ago. And but that's how all this comes together.
Yeah. And
Okay.
There's no marker at Fort Hill Cemetery here. There's no marker for Hardwick Close. There's no market for St. James House of the Happy Feet. I mean, we've got things that we could talk about. And now, Brian, tell us about Charleston.
Thank you.
And you can call us here at 614-5553.
Well, the Charleston
Yay,
Calhoun
Charleston. Yeah.
Hiwassee Historical Society has been greatly involved in trying to tell the other story of the Trail of Tears that took place here in 1838. And in recent months, the entire town of Charleston has now been designated as a national parks location on the Trail of Tears.
A significant, yeah.
This is national. This isn't, just
Yeah.
Bradley County or the state. This is a national recognition.
And because of that designation, Charleston has now had its first marker erected to designate that when you drive into Charleston, when you drive into the vicinity now, you will now be entering into the Fort Cass Immigration Depot. And that marker is now, Darlene Goins posted on Facebook and shared a photograph of that marker. And I've been getting the word out as well, to let everyone know that.
And where is the marker?
That's what I have not seen where it's located. She didn't
We drove through
designate.
the other day and I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean that we could have missed it.
This is huge for Bradley County.
Yeah,
This tourism dollars.
I know.
Well, and it's just about
I know.
time.
Because it's just one of many that will be put up. You'll have these markers coming from the north, from the south. However you're entering into Charleston, you'll have that designation that you're entering into the Fort Cass Depot.
Eventually, there will be a walkway going from about where the football field is in Charleston, through the park, through the cypress grove, beside the spring, down to by the river, and over to the boat dock. And along the way, there will be signage there that will tell you the significance of that area.
And we understand they're working on getting that walkway connected to the Greenway in Cleveland eventually.
How far are we away now? 6 miles?
Uh-huh.
It's 6 miles
I'll
from
probably
where
never walk that far, but
it's 6 miles from where it ends at Home Depot to where it will begin in the city of Charleston. Just 6 miles. Now, we'll have to go across a lot of private property, so we're hoping that the folks that live along, I think it's going to run along Mouse Creek, will allow people to walk on that and be on the back sides of their property. And what a wonderful thing for Bradley County to have.
yeah, that's so. And just all these markings and the this information is that people and hopefully we get that brown sign out on the interstate saying historical area.
Yeah, Fort Cass
Once
this
we
way.
get that national sign out there, they're going people turn off and go down. Now we'll have to the National Park Service will help develop that area. There'll be things to see.
And for those of you who are like me who have the National Park Service's passport book, and you get the stamps every time you go to a national park, Charleston now has their stamp that says Fort Cass on it, I believe. And I got mine the last time I went up there to the Heritage Center, which is across the road from the football field. It's being run by people being paid part-time by the Chamber of Commerce and volunteers, so it may not always be open, but it's open a lot.
So that's just a jewel in our community that's long overdue. And thanks that that historical society there in Charleston, Calhoun, and which one am I leaving out? Charleston,
Hiwassee.
I have to get all those together there.
Now, the
Thanks
sign-
to their work, this is being done. It just the dedication and people sticking their finger in people's noses saying,
Sticking a finger in the eye. Come on, let's do
it's
something.
time to do something in Cleveland, and it's long overdue.
Well, the signs that we have lost in Charleston are the ones that indicated where the Cherokee Agency was. It was right at the bridge there when you pass over into McMinn County. When they widened the road, it mysteriously disappeared. Also, another one that disappeared was the one to Rattlesnake Springs, which was located at Sheffy Lane.
Right.
And just by coincidence, I'm sure that when a little power station or telephone station, I don't know what it is, a bunch of things sitting there on the side of the road, when those things were installed, it just kind of disappeared too. So, we just don't quite know what happened to the signs. But those two signs are missing, but I'm not so worried about them because I know that Charleston is going to be well documented here. You will be able to come into Charleston, get their map, follow the map, and you won't be able to go onto the properties, but you'll be able to see the properties from the road where we had encampments and other things that happened.
There
in
are
Charleston.
plans to have driving tours, biking tours. Yeah.
That's
Wonderful plans. Let's get this call.
Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Good morning.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Marilyn. We already said you spending your 50th anniversary at the fish at the fish sale.
Truck.
What's going on?
The fish truck had a mechanical problem.
Oh, no.
It's not running today.
Uh-oh.
So you're not going to get that carp for your anniversary then?
No, no fish today. They will be, if they have a fish order, they can come to Beatty's at 10 o'clock Tuesday morning and pick up their fish, or if they just want to come by there and get some fish. And we're at Tractor Supply, and the Ladies Auxiliary from the Veterans thing is up here selling poppies for Memorial Day. So everybody needs to come by and donate them a little bit and support them. They're real nice. I talked to them for a few minutes. And
All righty, sounds
thank
good.
you. Happy anniversary.
oh, well, thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
I hope you have as many as we have.
Yeah,
Me
bye-bye.
too, the Charleston is going to be great, and we'll spend a lot more time as the years come along on Charleston.
Well, and Calhoun's just as important.
Yes.
And so the things I'm hoping that the signage will continue in to Calhoun also, but talk about a nationally important place that's never been documented, and it's happening, and it's really exciting. And then it's going to cause this triangle of Blythe's Ferry, Fort Cass at Charleston,
Red
and
Clay
then
State Park.
Red State. Well, actually, it's going to be more than the triangle. You got Red Clay State Park. And then in the near future, there's going to be an interpretive center at Moccasin Bend to talk about all the history there. Of course, it's pre-Cherokee, Cherokee, Civil War, racing. They had a dirt track there in the 50s. And so when people come to this area, we're going to give them a supersonic bang for their buck.
Talking about, the historical markers that we have here in Cleveland, there have been 9, or I think it's actually 11 now. Counting the Bradley High School. But, first off, let's say DeSoto's route was in McDonald. It's no longer there. It got hit by a car, apparently, and before we could get it put back up, thanks to the people down at Benevout Farms, they were going to go put it back up. They got there. It's done been gone. The one for Rattlesnake Springs is gone. The one for Fort Cass or Charleston is gone. Candy's Creek is gone.
Candy's Creek Mission.
Yes. Those are gone. Now the ones we have left is the Oak Grove Academy over on First Street.
The Male Academy on Central Avenue.
Hold on a second here. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron.
Good morning.
This is Pat Gear.
Hey, Pat.
What's up, buddy?
Well, let me tell you about talking to Mr. Hildebrand, who farms the Norman Farm now at, where Candace Creek Mission was.
Yes.
I talked to him. I met him back there on that road on his tractor as he's going to the field there maybe 2 months ago. And he pinpointed that location for me as a mission.
Okay.
And he said he growed up in that area, and he remembered a marker being actually at the spot of the mission.
Mm-hmm.
Which I know nothing about that. I know about the marker down on Highway 60.
Oh, so you're saying that there was an additional marker?
That's what Mr. Hildebrand said.
But both of them are missing this.
Yeah. Well, then we got another one missing. Well, the only one that's listed with the state of Tennessee is the Candy's Creek Mission one, and it was out on the highway next to the bridge, or close to the bridge. But let me tell you something, Pat. Sometimes those things get moved. But as I say that, let me tell you, another person that I trust their opinion on things kept asking me about another marker that had been in that area, and I told her I was not aware of it. So there could have been an additional marker out there that just was maybe not exactly an official one.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
Could he show you that spot?
Yes, he pinpointed. We were sitting right there at it talking.
Okay, was it on Candy's Creek Ridge Road?
Yeah, and it's right near the area where the Norman Spring was located there, where you turn into a field. Well, it's on the east side. I thought it was on the west side. But
No.
It's on the east side, and that agrees with the description that Colonel Corn gives for it.
Okay.
Well,
So is that fairly close to that the little mall there?
Yeah, it's about, well, now, I'd say maybe 100 yards from that area, maybe a little more. There's a fire plug located right there at the spot.
Okay, that helps me.
Uh,
So you think that it was on the east side of Candies Creek Ridge Road?
That's right. And I asked him if he'd be open to allowing people to come on there and survey that spot. And he said he would. So you should talk to him.
I think we probably will.
I think I will, Pat. Thank you so much.
Pat,
Let me say one
go
more.
go right
ahead.
ahead, hon.
I would like to see him mark Jesse Bushyhead's farm.
Absolutely. That's one that Ron and I talked about just yesterday in the car. I told him that, to my knowledge, Jesse Bushyhead lived about where Cleveland High School is now.
That's right.
And then we could talk about Jesse, and then you talk about how it became the county farm, and then you talk about how it became Cleveland High School.
you know,
Right. That site should be marked.
oh,
I absolutely agree with you.
There's quite a few of them there.
oh, we agree with you there. I mean,
And have you ever heard, Pat? If not, I know that there was a big house at that location where Cleveland High School is sitting. Was it a log structure or was it a later structure? Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I've been out there before it's built, but I don't remember.
It makes me absolutely ill to think of in the last 50 or 60 years the buildings that we've torn down.
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
Pat, we're trying to get a campaign going that the new school there on Georgetown, we'd like to have that named Candies Creek.
Yeah, that would be great.
And
And to spell it correctly.
yes. Well, I decided that we might have to pick our battles, but that would be how I would present it to the city.
And that's where, and right in their front drive, we would put the Candies Creek Missions sign back and put it in that location so we know it'd be guarded, and that would work.
And I think that the mileage on that, of course, it was just on the south side of the bridge, and it said 4/10 of a mile from this location was the site of the Candies Creek Mission. Well, when you move it just across the road, it's got to be close enough that would be the truth still. And so I'm thinking if we put the sign there, first of all, the community would be more aware of it, and there would be a safe place to park to look at the sign.
Yeah.
But this was the first documented school and church in Bradley County. That's significant.
Right. That Jesse Bushyhead went to school there.
Yes,
he
did.
sure did, and his name is on the
He led
roster.
one of the parties out on the Trail of Tears.
Yeah, and the Bigsby girls attended there. A lot of women attended there that went on out west and became teachers to their people.
One more thing. It just-
Sure, go ahead, Pat.
Hildebrand was a cousin to Jack Walker.
Yes.
And I didn't have a chance to ask Mr. Hildebrand, the farmer here, if he was related, but that he may still be related.
He may still be. Pat, if you will try your best to remember to call us back after the show, I need your phone number. All righty. Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Pat.
Always a pleasure.
See,
See, that's how you save history right there.
that's good. Oh, and everybody's writing notes about where this is. Okay, we got another caller here. We got them stirred up this morning. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. You're live on the air.
Hello.
Hello.
You're live.
Ron.
Yes.
Bobby Orr.
Hey, Bobby Orr, how are you?
What's going on, buddy?
Birthday party out here at the fruit stand. I got free hamburgers, hot dogs, and making homemade ice cream with a hit and miss motor.
Well, how young are you today, young man?
I can't hear you.
How old are you today?
Tell everybody to come on out. You and David come out and get you some ice cream. You hear that motor running?
Yeah,
Yes,
I do.
Hey, I've been there and had them hamburgers on your birthday, and they're pretty good.
All right. Come
Thank you, Bobby.
We'll see.
on the show.
We'll see you
Bye-bye.
right after 12. All right. Bye-bye.
They make ice cream in a huge container, and it's so good when Bobby has his birthday parties out there. But his birthday seemed to be getting closer together. Did you notice that, Ron?
There's at least 80 of them now, I think. We're talking about markers we do have or don't have. The DeSoto's missing. The ones in Charleston, Candies Creek's mission, Rattlesnake Springs, all that. The ones we do have up are, of course, Bradley High School, which is just one of the newer ones. We have Oak Grove Academy. Somebody else
Bennett
help me.
Cooper's Cemetery out
Yeah.
on Mrs. Neal's Blythewood Farms.
Who else?
Hang on, you caught me off guard. We had the Red Clay Council Ground, which is right at the Georgia-Tennessee line
Right.
on highway on Dalton Pike.
John Ross.
The John Ross one, and folks, that's a 1938 one. The Cherokee History one, which is the John Ross one, that's located on at the corner of Red Hill Valley Road and Flint Springs Road. It was erected in 1938. The Red Clay Council Grounds, I believe that one was put up the same year in 1938, along with the Cherokee Agency one that's missing from the bridge at Bowaters, and Jack Walker's, I think, went up in 1928.
Yeah. Well, there been two Jack Walker monuments,
Well,
and
the
we'll
one
talk
that's
about
up now is a 1970s
it. Yeah.
one.
The other one,
Let's get this
5 ton.
call.
The other 5 ton marker is missing. Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron. I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Who won that old folks game?
Bradley High School 6-3. There was 3 field goals in the game.
I'd say there's a lot of folks that can't walk this morning.
I bet you they are.
Well, actually, tell you what, I was amazed how athletic these. The oldest person graduated in '86, so that's pretty old now to be playing. But most of them were they'd been out of school maybe 10 years.
Did they have to load anybody in the ambulance?
No, I mean they some of them laid on the field after every play just to get their breath, But no, I was amazed how athletic they were. I thought they was going to have to call an ambulance for me because I had to walk into the stadium. And then the time I got my 2 hot dogs, I was just worn out.
Of course. Just ready to go home, go to bed.
You're
That's
right.
right.
Yeah, but Bradley, now that's the second annual alumni game, and Bradley's ahead 2-0 now. So just rub it into my Cleveland buddies.
Well, I was just wondering who won it.
Yep, 6-3.
Okay, thanks.
All right, bye.
Rattlesnake Spring sign went up in 1959,
Mm-hmm.
which was a movement by Colonel Corn and some of the judges and things here locally. And that would have been about on the 121st anniversary of the removal. Candies Creek Mission sign was put up in 1958 on the 120th anniversary of the removal. So a lot of times it's kind of like when an anniversary comes up, people get kind of excited and get things done.
Now there's several places that I think we ought to mark, and then we're going to ask everybody about that. But right now, something else is happening. Is the Taylor Springs is been? You can see it now. It doesn't look like much right now. It looks like a big hole in the ground where they tore down a building, and under that building, which used to be Ganaway's Hardware for us old timers around town, Ganaway's barbecue hardware, and he actually run water up from the spring, and the walls help cool the building. Pretty unique concept there. That building is torn down, and it's going to become a city park. They're going to put some type of enclosure around the spring like they would have had back then. It'll still be open for you to go in and look at. There's water still running out of that constantly. And more about that. Let's get this call here real quick. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
How you doing, Ron? Good morning.
Hey, Brett. How you doing, sir?
Good.
What's going on?
Watching TV this morning.
You're watching what?
TV.
Oh, okay.
Hey, guess who turns 25 on Saturday, next Saturday?
Debbie.
No.
Brian over here.
No.
Me. You're going to be 25 years old? Well, happy birthday to you. Early birthday.
Yeah, I turned 25 May 30th, Ron.
Wow.
Well, May 30th. Man, there's another historical marker right there, the day that Brett was born.
Yeah. How you doing, Debbie?
I'm doing great, Brett.
I'm going to a game June the 6th.
All right, where you going? The Braves?
I'm going to see the Braves take on the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, that's great to hear.
He used to be the closer for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Who's that?
Jason Grilly.
That's right, he did.
I'm going to see him play against his former team.
Okay. Now, so what do you want for your birthday? Do you want a new girlfriend? Do you want a new girlfriend for your birthday party?
One.
Oh, you already got one.
I already got one.
Just one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What's her name?
I'm listening in on my phone.
Okay.
All right.
Good talking to
Thanks,
you, Brett.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye. Brett's going to be 25 years old. He's our official
right.
roaming sporter for Whoop Radio.
But Taylor Springs, all of that's in the planning now.
Right.
The signage that will be there, what will be there, how they will display the springs.
And we hope to get a historical marker there because that is the original spot, or that area there is what we call Cleveland, Tennessee.
That's right. Deb, where would you like to see a sign?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think. I was looking over a list of things. Several places, really.
Yeah, that's
that
it.
is
It's hard to narrow them down.
significant to Broward County history.
What do you think, Brian?
The Cleveland Female Masonic Institute.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's
Could
a good-
possibly be the oldest building in the city of
Yeah.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
And it's still standing.
Still standing.
If you go to the Monument Building and you come south, it's that huge white. It's been an apartment building now for years, and it started out as a girls' school
Girls' school.
in 1852 or something. They
Yeah.
could not finish it for
Yeah.
lack of funds. The Masonic Lodge came in and said, "Well, we'll help you out," and they helped them build the building, and then they both used the building. Is that a
Right.
pretty
Right, they did.
accurate?
Yeah, the Masonic organization used the top floor. That was their hall for meetings and ceremonies, but the entire bottom floor was the school.
Deb, what about you? Where would you like to see one?
I think we need to probably start at. I would do the Phil-R House because that was not that. I mean, the Phil-R Lake. Because we all know that for generations it was a place that you went to swim. Well, prior to that, it was Thompson Springs. Prior to that, it was the courthouse for the Cherokee Nation, the court area for the Cherokee Nation. So there's a very huge layers of history there, along with a cemetery that was there with it that is now missing. And so I would start there. My next one would be Fort Hill. I've done the research for Fort Hill. I just don't have the application and the money to get it done, but I could do that. When you destroy so much of the buildings and stuff in your town, sometimes you have to rely on the cemetery to tell your town's story, and that would be true.
And there's a lot of cemeteries in the marked here. Yeah, for me, I've got there's 3 or 4. I mean, I've got more than that, but one that Hardwick closed 1890. That the original building right here in downtown Cleveland or near downtown Cleveland. I think that is
I'm not
one.
sure it's the original building, but it is a very early building.
Yeah, well, it's not
because
that
they
site.
had fire and fire and fire and fire.
Well, that site, not necessarily
that
that
site
yes.
is the original site.
PNS Hospital, right where the museum is, basically,
Yes.
and there was a very unique place. And then A.J. Tomlinson, the person who created the Church of God, was on the mountain there where the Fields of Woods is, and had a vision and started a church, and was just the general overseer for years and years and years until the split, and then it became Church of God of Prophecy, and that's their big battles. But A.J. Thompson, there's a sign over at his house, that the church has put up. There's not a historical marker saying
There's not much
that.
to get you to go there without that.
Right.
Deb?
I'm still trying to think.
Okay, well, just jump
I'm
in.
thinking Myra Inman. Something.
Well, now her family, the
You know.
first inn that they had. Well, let me back up. Of course, the Accoy House was down where Merchants Bank used to be.
Yes.
That whole block that went all the way over to where the Bank of Cleveland is, and all the way over to Inman Street was the Accoy Hotel. And Myra Inman's dad ran that to begin with, and then he died. They opened up an inn down close to the railway station. They sold that, and they went over to where the telephone company is now on Broad Street. But she is a significant part of this history. If you can explain that, Deb.
She wrote many. She kept a diary during the Civil War, giving her interpretation through the eyes of a teenager of how the war was significant in this area.
Well, I think
very southern.
I think with tying her story into the school
Yes.
sign because
Yes, she attended.
her education was interrupted because of the war. They closed the
Yes.
school down.
And
The-
her
the
her
prin-
writings give us a lot of in-depth of what was going on, too.
The principal of the school ended up fleeing. He actually fled to the north and joined the Union Army. But his family was from the north. But
Well, and then you have yes, and thinking of little girls, St. Luke's Episcopal Church. We've got
Yes.
Right.
we've got that, the mausoleum there, and we have that beautiful old church, but there's nothing there to tell you.
yeah,
And
A lot of
and
people
her
do not
grandfather,
realize.
Dr. Thompson,
And-
had a big house there on that block.
most people don't realize that the St. Luke's Episcopal Church started in the
in her memory.
it started in the building of the Cleveland Masonic Institute.
Oh, I didn't realize
I
that.
didn't
See, a lot. It was the heart. It was the heart of Cleveland. A
Yeah.
lot of things happened there, and then we have right next door to St. Luke's Episcopal Church. You have the First Presbyterian Church.
It's
that-
on the National Register.
It's got on the
Historical
National
Place.
Register of Historic Places. There's bullet holes in that building from the Civil
Yes.
War,
Yeah, yeah.
and they once had lofts where segregation took place, and it's very significant. And they have done a good job of preserving that building. And when they try to add on something that looks appropriate. In that same neighborhood, Broad Street United Methodist Church, which was Broad Street
1890.
Southern Church right after the Civil
Right.
War. It was part of the still part of the Southern folks went there, and that's significant.
I just want to say real quick, here's the topics, and this don't have to be what can be historical science, but I just want to give you some examples. African Americans, agriculture, you can start thinking about arts, businesses, commerce and industry, Hardwicks, cemeteries, Dedminster, Fort Hill, communities, the Black Fox community of Cherokee relation, craftsmanship, early exploitation, early settlement, Taylor's Place, education, Red Hill Mission, would be another good one. Government, statehood, governors, homes, the Roth House, immigrants, Roth.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets in under both categories. Once the richest man. Inns and resorts. That whole area in McDonald could talk about the mineral springs and the areas and the resorts. There was 6 or 7 resorts down there that would have fit in there. Inventors, journalism, legal, law, legends, lords, literacy, piracy, medicine.
Piracy.
What did I say? Literacy and literary. Yeah, those two. Military. Paul Huff.
Yes.
We have a street name, but not a historical marker. Music, entertainment. St. James House of the Happy Feet will go both in the African American and in their neighborhoods, politics, religion. The Church of God, A.J. Tomlinson, science, secession, slavery, abolition, social, sports and recreation. Bob Johnson, a football star from Bradley High School, could be there. Transportation, travel, war. Once again, and the war has multiple ones. Civil War, War of 1812. We have a lot of that stuff. So that's just some of the ideals.
When we come back in our second hour, I hope we can talk about the new marker going up in southern Bradley County.
We'll talk about
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to hear that's happening too.
'Cause
Folks,
it's-
go ahead there, Brian.
I was going to say because it's definitely related to our war, Civil
Brian,
War.
while we're getting ready to go to break here, would you explain to folks about the barbecue that's going to happen as our last installment for the Civil War activities?
Yes, we're planning on hoping to have a last finale for the 4-year Civil War that we've been recognizing. We've been having all these events over the past 4 years to recognize the significance of how the Civil War impacted Bradley County. And our last event is welcoming the boys back home. We're hoping to have a barbecue that will be a joint meeting between the historical societies of Charleston, Calhoun, Hiwassee, and Bradley County coming together and sort of having a celebration of the end of our...
If you want to attend, that's very easy to do. You need to be a
member, yes,
of the Charleston Society or the Bradley County Historical Society. And that's a good reason to join, and money well spent. And there'll be reenactments there. We think music from the time, and something good to eat and good fellowship. And we'll actually be having it, we hope, on the farm where the boys in blue celebrated when they came back from war.
That will be in October.
It'll be out in the Eureka Valley. If you're a history buff, you will not want to miss this. Ron, are we ready to go to break?
I think we are. And if you think of a place that you think is historical that you'd like to talk about, give us a call here at 614-5553 after the break. After there are a few little commercials that we play, we always play the song Gone Home. And unfortunately, we have some very sad news for Cleveland. A young lady was killed in
Lassiter. Ashland
Lambert.
Lambert. I'm sorry.
Ashley Lambert was killed in a tragic accident up on North Lee Highway. This song goes out to her and all the other people who have loved ones with loss. It's called Gone Home. They'll play right after the commercials, folks. We'll be right back after these few words.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into cash. The cash you need is closer than you think.
Get an auto title loan today for up to $2,500 at Check Into Cash.
You drive home with the cash in your pocket.
Visit Check Into Cash for an auto title loan today, or get a payday advance for up to $425. Call toll-free 877-262-CASH. Title loan amount determined by value of car and ability to repay. Borrowers often use payday advances over a period of months, which can be expensive. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
If you need a little green, Lending Frog is making deals. He'll lend you cash on any kind of wheels. Borrow just a little, or you can borrow big. Lending Frog is a new financial gig. It's hip to hop into cash. LendingFrog.com is making a splash. Dig it, dig it. Dig it, dig it.
All of my friends that I loved yesterday have gone. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. The songbirds are singing, the dells seem to say have gone home. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. Life here is lonely since they've gone before. Gone. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. The old weeping willow that stands by the door sadly sighs. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone. They have gone home. They've joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as their work here was done. Gone home. They have gone home. Gone home. They have gone home.
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. We're talking about historical monuments and markers, the ones that are here, the ones that are missing, the ones that should be here. We've got Debbie Riggs and Brian Reed with us. We got a call here. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning. This is Lisa Pojo.
Hey, Lisa, how are you?
Our reporter on the streets.
Yes. I just thought that was kind of ironic that you were discussing these things today, and I was there, and I think you answered my question right as I hit send on my text. But remarkable markers up there, and we just saw as we were leaving the ones for LeBron Park, who was the first grave dug there in 1836.
Yes.
13-year-old boy who killed by a falling log. And recently my daughter had to write a paper on her an ancestor who served in the Confederate War, and they were all a bunch of deserters, and we found one of their very nice tombstones up there.
What was the last name on that family?
Watson.
Watson.
Yeah. Coleman, Lucius, Lucius, Coleman, and Adam, I believe.
Yeah.
So, Rufus and Lucius were serial deserters. They would desert and join back up and desert again.
Go ahead,
I was going to
Brian.
say many of those early deserters from the Confederate Army was because they were Unionist and forced to serve, and they would flee the Confederate Army and then join the Union Army.
Yeah. Well, one of those did that, but the rest, I think they just did not like fighting. And
Getting shot at could be a bad thing.
they always deserted on the 12th of the month, so I'm thinking the 12th was payday.
Or day after payday.
And then they took off back home with the money. Saw just interesting markers, but there is an area that is not maintained at all, and I think you've mentioned the fact that there's a section up there that no one knows who owns that.
Up towards the crest of the hill?
No, this was almost directly behind the old South Cleveland Church of God. And
yeah, that's not. Yeah.
Up there working, but those graves, nothing has been done to them in forever.
That's so sad. All of that part, that once you get out of the historical part, the older part and the veterans part, and you start up the hill, well, the Bradley and Cleveland governments help maintain most of that portion. And then when you get up to the top of the hill, they were sold by individuals. The pieces of property were sold by individuals. And in a day and time long ago, families would go and maintain the graves. Well, when those family members die and it doesn't belong to anybody, that's what happens. And so that would be a great thing for an Eagle Scout to do.
So, well, it would be, but the Eagle Scout board is kind of funny about what you do. So,
okay.
It would be a great community service project, and just any and every group.
Yes, that's right. If a youth group is looking for something good to do, a few hardworking people up there with weed eaters could make a big difference in that portion.
And all of our local civic clubs, if you want a little project to do, there's a great thing to do. Or if they want to find a historical place and get it marked, they need about $1,750, and they can put up an historical marker if you have the proof that it is historical.
Yes.
Lisa, were you there today putting flags up?
Yes, we were.
Well, tell us tell us about that.
Okay, well, every year the VFW has a small program in the morning, Saturday morning before Memorial Day, and all of the scouts come, and the VFW provides flags, and the scouts go out and walk through all the cemeteries and place flags on all the veterans' graves. And this is the 12th year that my children have done this.
Well, let me ask you this. How do they know? I know you know all the ones in the veterans portions, but do you have a list of the other ones? Or
No, actually we don't. You just have to walk through the cemetery and look on the tombstones and see if there's an inscription or, a cross that says something.
I think the SAR are making an effort to figure out who's veterans and who are not in the cemeteries.
Wonderful. Because we have, I had a discussion with my Girl Scouts several times that they needed to know the difference between a military emblem and a fraternal emblem.
Yeah.
and so some of those you're walking by and you're like, oh, that's the wrong one. So
Because there's a lot of Union and Confederate soldiers that are buried up there with markers, but it does not indicate anywhere on their grave that they were soldiers.
That's right.
Yes, and sometimes they will look at the date of death, and if it was 1964, they kind of sometimes they go ahead and put one there. We have had the question before about should they put the flag on the Union or the Confederate soldiers, and I'm like, yes, this is.
Yes. They were Americans and they were fighting their wars. So, yes, I think.
Yes.
I would think, too, that we might need to encourage our listeners to, be sure that a flag is on a loved one's grave if they're not marked in some way. If they want a flag on it, they may just need to do it themselves, which is what we do.
And we also, the Scouts even go out to a lot of private cemeteries and really smaller cemeteries. We hit the big ones, but the smaller ones too. So they do make an effort to get a flag on every grave that they can identify.
Yes, that's a good project.
So, and then I believe they're going to have a flag retirement ceremony here at the VFW after lunch today. And then my son is finishing up his Eagle project at First Methodist, and to complete it Tuesday night at 6:30, he's having a flag retirement ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of flags in Cleveland needing to be retired. So I think if somebody had a flag retirement every week, we still probably couldn't get all the flags.
Is there a drop box somewhere in Bradley County for those flags?
There is supposed to be one here at the VFW. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but they do have one here on the property somewhere.
Yeah. A lot of times there'll be an old postal box that's been remade or something like that, and you can go by and fold it the best you can and put it in there, and then they'll make sure that it's retired in the proper manner.
Yes. So, but I'm going to get off here and let you get back to the rest of the memorials.
All righty. Thanks, Deb.
Okay,
thanks, Lisa. All right, Deb, what did you think of during the break that we might need to mark?
Craig Miles' house and the old depot of 1912.
Yes, the depot. We went by there yesterday, and I was so excited that they have cleaned up the northern end of it.
Yes.
And there's some bushes and things there that make it look very attractive. And then it says Cleveland right over it. And I said, Ron, that's a perfect place for someone coming into Cleveland to get their picture made. That they could, and while I would prefer that it's a museum, I'm thankful that it's been preserved and it's the little bus station now. But tell us, the Craig Mile House is open. I mean, you can go in there now. Tell everybody about that.
It is the history branch of the public library. The upstairs is closed off, of course.
Mm-hmm. But you can go in there and still see some original furniture.
Yes, original furniture. The woodwork is beautiful.
It is.
And
right after the Civil War it was built.
Yes, after the Civil War.
Donated to Bradley County or Cleveland in 1925,
something like
by the Johnston family.
By the Johnston family, and a lot of books was donated along with it, and it is to be used as a public library.
Yes, and that's where our library was. A lot of people may not realize that. And I remember the children's room being in that one little skinny room.
Yes.
And
well, the history part was upstairs in a itsy bitsy room, and no rhyme or reason for the shelving. People would.
It's just rooms piled 5 with newspapers and all that stuff's been corrected now.
Yes.
Of course, the library is actually in the old Hardwick house. And let's get this call.
Go ahead, caller. You're live. Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call in on air. I'll just call in some other time.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Bye. You can call us here at 614-5553. When you call, you're going to be live.
That's someone that's under the impression we have someone answering the phone besides us.
Yeah, it's just us here today.
It's just us.
And but if you want to talk about a historical marker, if you think of one, or if you want to know how you get it done, or if you want to know what qualifies, give us a call. We can answer that. And
best that we can.
And you done?
Yeah, we're finished. Deb talked about the Craig Mile House and the depot, and we actually have a marker. It's not a Tennessee State big metal marker going up, but it's just as good. What's going up this June, Brian?
Yeah, it actually has been approved by the Tennessee Historical Commission.
I was just indicating it's not one of these big metal ones, I don't think.
No. We will be having a ceremony on June 13th. It will be at 2 o'clock.
That's a Saturday?
It's a Saturday. And the address is 7723 Dalton Pike. So it's in southern Bradley County as you going towards Dalton. There will be as I say, a ceremony for this dedication of the marker, a marker that is going to designate this is the official title of the marker. It is the Civil War No Man's Land, and it is recognizing the impact that the war had upon Bradley County citizens who were really in some.
You were just on your own.
Yeah, in many ways. I mean, they were ravaged. I mean, they were having things stolen from them. They were again being attacked in some regard by both. Sometimes it was Union soldiers. Sometimes it was Confederate soldiers. Sometimes it was just
thugs.
Yeah, just those that were just ornery and just wanted to seek revenge.
And so that was the Lusk farm.
Right.
Which is now, my papa would have called it the Hanner farm. It's the Hanna farm.
That's where the marker will be. It will be on the former farm of Joseph Lusk II, who, in the story, he defended his farm from a band of outlaws that attacked, and he was able to, he ended up killing one of the outlaws as they attacked his farm. But they took revenge upon him,
and burned the house to the ground. Yes. And the house that's standing there was built just like when the war was over. The first day that they were able to do something, they built the house back. But Charlie Hanna, that lives in the house, is a relative of Mr. Lusk. The Revolutionary War Lusk is buried up on the hill behind the house, and there's been several markers put there. But the story goes, and Judge Lusk is the one that told this story, which is out of that family, is that they just kept coming and stealing and coming and stealing and coming and stealing. So they came to steal the last 2 mules. And the grandchildren jumped on the mules and were riding them away. And Mr. Lusk, he had enough. He just stepped out on the porch and just shot one of them off the horse. And it was such a shock to the other guys that they rode off. But of course they came back, and Mr. Lusk had gone over and was hiding in a barn in the Red Hill Valley, and but they burned the house to the ground. And Charlie Hanna had been told that they had hid their wheat down in the basement of that old plantation house. And later, just a few years ago, his grandpa had told him, if you ever start digging in the yard, you're going to find burnt wheat. Now it's amazing to me that wheat would still be around, but indeed they had to redo the septic lines there at the house. And what did they dig up? The burnt wheat, which I thought was a pretty interesting part of the story. But they buried the Confederate soldier just there in the yard.
Wow.
You know, I don't know who even took time to bury him. But anyway, that's going to be marked. If you want to go, there's a number you're supposed to call. Maybe I can give it out next week.
Yeah.
That it's just asking you to make a reservation so they can kind of plan how many. But you probably won't plan to take your own chair.
The guest speaker will be the chief historian for the Chickamauga battlefield, Jim Ogden.
Jim's an excellent speaker.
Yes, he'll be giving the sort of presentation at the marker.
Now, who has headed up this marker? Do you know?
Yes,
McCoy?
And I do not have his name. I thought it was. Let me see.
Okay,
I can look it up.
You check that and find that number for us, because I need to call it myself and prepare for that.
The Sons of the American Revolution chapter here. If you know of anyone that was a soldier in the Revolutionary War or in the War of 1812 that's buried here in Bradley County. Okay. They will put an SAR marker on that and
I don't know about the War of 1812 ones.
Yes,
I know
1812
about well, then I know where one's at.
Okay,
that needs a marker.
I'm pretty sure that's included there. Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron. How are you and Debbie doing?
We're doing great.
How are you, Joey?
Hey, I'm enjoying this. This is something that I've never heard of.
Well, it's something that, we kind of take it for granted. But if we don't preserve our history and let the next generations know, it just disappears, and people don't realize how significant Bradley County was.
Well, since I'm not here, this is all new to me.
Well, like I say, we've just scratched the surface of the great things and people that's in our community. We just, just thinking off the top of their head, we've probably mentioned 20 places that are very historical, at least to us. It may not be to the world, but now Charleston, that's a world. I mean, that is a very historical place that we've never marked, and thank goodness it's finally being done.
Well, that's great. But I've enjoyed this morning. I mean, you brought up the men there in Virginia that got burned up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had heard that once before, and it was good to hear it again.
Yeah.
Well, it's a
an
sad
interesting
story, and
sad story.
We're glad that they did that in Virginia, and of course we have a very prominent monument here in Cleveland.
Yeah.
To do that, and like I say, most people have never even thought about that little monument as you drive the big. They thought they were all together. Most people in town would have thought that.
Well, I probably did too, because, like I said, since I'm not from here, I didn't know all of this stuff. But from you two, I've learned quite a bit.
Well, I tell you, the funny thing is that there's nothing funny about the situations there, but is when they put up the big Confederate monument and they took down that little one. There was about another war broke out here in Cleveland.
Court cases and actually, you know, even some of the ladies that were involved in raising the big monument was out of the Hardwick family that had the death in the family, and they didn't know which side to be on.
Oh, really?
And then the families that of the three boys, they didn't necessarily agree about the monument. One of them thought it ought to be at Fort Hill Cemetery, and so the history there is unbelievable, and some of the prominent families involved, and like I say, it was a big deal here in Cleveland.
What was the name? Hardwick and
Steed and Marshall.
Marshall, okay.
And Steed.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I've learned something, you know, and all.
Well, that's our job every week, to try to learn something.
Well, I know it, and I need to learn a whole lot.
Now, we won't bring up the things we need to forget.
I know, that's my problem. Things I need to forget, I keep them, and things I need to keep, I just let them fly by.
Well, I read something the other day that says, I've been there, I've done that, I just can't remember what it was.
Thanks, Joe. We'll play your song for you.
I done got it loaded for you.
Listen, Ron,
yes.
You know who sings that song, Thank You, Jesus, for what you're doing for me?
Not off the top of my head, but I'll try to look for it.
Well, now, some Sundays he plays it down there. I talked with him one day, and I told him I like that when they ring those golden bells.
Mm-hmm.
He played it one time, and that's the last time I've heard it. I wish he'd not play so many bluegrass and play more gospel. I like the Kingsmans and the Florida Boys and all different ones.
You like that old quartet stuff, don't you?
Yes, I do.
I do too.
Okay, and thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, darling. Bye-bye.
And then you like swinging.
Yeah.
Pardon?
And then you like swinging.
Oh, I love that.
We got it loaded for you. Thanks, babe.
Thank you so kindly.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ron, tell him about... Oh, Brian, what do you have?
I have his name. The
Okay.
organizer is Tim McCoy, and the phone number for RSVP is 202-550-2369.
That's 2 o'clock on the June 13th, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Off Dalton Pike.
I get excited for the dedication of those signs. And now that's one of those the Civil War signs that like at the one at the Museum Center, right?
No, it is not a Civil War Trails marker.
It
what
is
I know.
not.
No.
It is
according to what he has told me, again, this was a Tennessee Historic Commission marker.
So is that one of these?
So it may be one of the.
Oh, that's even better.
That'd be even more exciting.
And
one
that,
of those.
That's what it says on his official announcement. Tennessee
Now, that's
Historical
exciting.
Commission roadside marker.
I wonder who did that one. You know, we can ask the state to put one up for free, but it probably wouldn't happen in our lifetimes because so many people have gotten on there before us. But someplace that I think that really needs to be marked is Blue Springs School site. Mm-hmm. You know, you had that's the new Blue Springs School from 1956 that was blown away in the tornado of 2011. But it was originally over in that cow pasture next to the railroad track. Yeah. So we could talk about the two locations of Blue Springs School,
and
but also...
Go ahead.
also, it was a huge Sherman encampment in
Right.
Bradley County.
Right.
And a lot of people might not know that.
Yeah.
And so that brings into the significance of the Blue Springs. And, of course,
Yeah.
Bradley County still owns that property. It could be right there at the ball fields. People could pull off safely and look at the signs. That's exciting. Now, someone told me or reminded me that there used to be a marker. He described it as a black and white marker that used to be next to the Cherokee Hotel that talked about the Jury family, Jory.
That was what Debbie was mentioning today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was an official one. It may have been an unofficial one. And then my brain tells me at some point in time I had seen a picture of the Cherokee Hotel, and that marker was off in the distance there. I couldn't read it, but I could see it. So I know that that's true, but missing. And, of course, we have the Princess Theater there from the 1920s also that's unmarked. That was very significant, and it was segregated, which would need to be mentioned in the signs. And thank goodness we still have the building. Are you ready with something, Ron?
Well, a couple things here, and then I'm going to ask you a question, and one that just gets me every time. If you would like, there is a book published by the Tennessee Historical Commission. You can go online, and it's called Tennessee Historical Markers, and it tells about every marker in the state of Tennessee. And there's some very interesting, just reading the book is pretty good, but if you're traveling to a town, you can go see sites and architects and things. A lot of things you can see. Sometimes it's where things used to be, and there's nothing there. The book is, I have a 1997 version. I haven't checked to see if they have an update, and I think the state paid $1.91 to print this book. They just want to let you know, but they sell it for about $12 maybe. It's not much.
$4 is what we
what
paid.
was it? Well, it may be. I bet it's more than that now, but I need to order the.
I think they're just trying to provide it as a service.
But it is very good. Now, I think we talk about historical markers being lost. Those metal signs you see up on the side of the road. A car hits them, or somebody just comes around and steals it and melts it down. Shame on anybody who steals it. Shame on anybody who melts it down. There ought to be a federal law that they're hung in the courthouse square. That's just my opinion.
Well,
but,
I mean, it is grand theft, though.
Yeah, it
$1,700.
is. And but the biggest monument that was stolen, sometime someone
Lost.
stole, stole, or it's missing.
Lost.
It's lost. The sword at the monument, the Confederate monument, was missing for years, and somebody found it in their garage. Apparently, a bunch of boys threw rocks at it and knocked it off and broke it.
They lost a ball game.
Yeah. So we got that back. But up where there is, Chief Jack Walker has a historical sign by the dumpster at Five Guys Burgers and Fries. Now, I just don't think that's an appropriate place for it. The sign was there before they put the dump. I'd like to see us move that sign down. But long before that 1970 sign was put up, back in the 1920-ish area, they put up a 5-ton boulder with a big brass plate on it. It's gone. Deb, tell us how it got gone. Well,
I didn't take it.
I mean, this was. Tell us about the sign first. It was put up by who?
It was put up by the Daughters of the American Revolution in 1928, I believe, which would have been the anniversary of the removal from 1838. It's on the 90th anniversary. We've estimated that it weighed 5 tons. It was a granite marker, bigger than any other marker like that that's still present in Bradley County.
5 foot tall?
Well, looks like by the people standing next to it that it would have been about 5 foot tall. It had a brass plate on it that talked about Jack Walker, and that was his farm, which is where Walgreens is now on North Ocoee Street. The father's one up North Ocoee Street when you almost get to Stewart Road. And
going north, he owned farms all the way towards Charleston.
He owned the Walker Valley.
Okay.
No, he and his dad owned the Walker Valley, or a big portion of it. Walker's school was over where North Lee School is now located. Hardly anyone knows that.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they were doing road work, and someone took off the brass plate in the early 1960s, and I understand it went to C.C. Cards, and it was supposed to be cleaned there.
That's the lore.
That's the lore.
Okay.
Somebody whose daddy's worked there told me that story, and it sort of just kind of disappeared.
Along with the 5-ton stone.
Well, the 5-ton stone was still sitting up close to the construction site, and it mysteriously disappeared. So I think it's probably down under Keith Street somewhere, because it's easier to get forgiveness than it is to get permission.
You don't think a bunch of good old boys stole it?
Well, I don't know what anybody would do with a rock that big. But anyway, the plaque could very well be in somebody's barn, as is the DeSoto sign, as is the Rattlesnake Springs sign, as is the Cherokee Agency sign. And my theory is that you bring it to us on Saturday morning, and we won't tell where it came from, and we'll get it put back up.
Oh, statute of limitations over. We would just like to have that sign
I just
back
figured,
if it happens to be anywhere.
Yeah.
Someone may have it in their garage or up in their on their wall in their house.
And sometimes when it hits the ground, the folks out cleaning up along the edge of the road just throw it in the trash bin. It could very well be in the dump. You don't know. But if they're out there somewhere, we'd like to get them back where they belong. Now, the Jack Walker marker that's up now, the Daughters of the American Revolution in 1970 said, well, we'll just put the sign back up, and they put up the traditional signs that you see out on the roadways, and dedicated it in 1970. I remember seeing Miss Elizabeth Villar in the picture, along with probably Colonel Corn was there and some other folks. But it is in a very high-speed location where you really can't read what it says. It is sitting out close to the dumpster. I'd like to see, yes, I've been kind of waiting to see who was going to buy that piece of property from the church, and see if Walgreens would not let us move it over next to their parking lot where you could park safely and read and look at the sign. It is a significant piece of property in Bradley County that is marked, but not marked respectfully anymore, I don't think.
So if there's a civic club out there who'd like to say this would be a good civic project, it's going to cost about $1,750, and there's paperwork involved with it, which we can get. There's a lot of people in this room would be glad to help you do the research and get history put back together. And let's save those things. Hardwood clothes. There's many places. When you start talking about the Cherokee Indians, Black Fox, Bushy Head, Biggs, Mouse, Bigsby. Been about
Bob Irwin's house, 1826, up on Walker Valley Road.
I'm sure he'd let it put a sign in his yard.
He would very much invite people to stop there and see his sign.
That was there before this was Tennessee.
Yes.
Or the United States.
This was when it was part of the Cherokee Nation. That house was built.
Now, Chief Jack Walker, everybody knows why he owns that big farm there. But his case, he was murdered. His murder trial led to the dissolving of what they call the Cherokee Nation. It was the final nail in the coffin that said this was a conquered nation. Brian, you want Phyllis? Do you have a good explanation of how that happened, or?
Well,
Brian is like, it's complicated.
He was part of the treaty group. They were the Cherokee themselves became split. They weren't split half and half. It was just simply a part of the leadership of the Cherokee.
A small part, wasn't it?
Yes, a very small part that decided that they would negotiate with the United States, that they saw no opportunity of keeping this land, and they wanted to try to get as much as they could. And they decided to negotiate. They formed a treaty. They became known as the Treaty Party. Mm-hmm. And all of these individuals, with the exception of a couple, they were eventually all gunned down. They were all assassinated.
Once they got out west, it was the Wild West, wasn't it?
Jack Walker was the first.
Right. Now, what was the two guys that killed him?
Foreman. One of them.
They murdered him down. We think is over on either Cedar Springs or that's somewhere there. They shot him. He died, and so they took the foreman, the two people, to McMinn County to try them for murder. Mm-hmm. Well, here come the rub. At the Hiwassee River, the United States ended. McMinn County was the United States and the state of Tennessee, and across the river was the Cherokee Nation. This was not America. This was the Cherokee Nation, and so the foreman's attorney said, you can't do that. You can't try them. You have, what's the word I want to use now? You're not, you have no jurisdiction over this. I can never say that word. So
spell it.
The trial was dismissed. Mm-hmm. The state went to the Tennessee Supreme Court in Knoxville, or the district court, and said this was a they say it was. And so what happened to that, they didn't ever try, they overturned that decision of the court and said the reason was that the Cherokee Nation was a conquered nation and it no longer existed because of these treaties that Jack Walker had signed. And so that was the final nail. And shortly after that, the troops moved in here to move them out.
Okay. Tell us about the Freeman School and why that would need a marker.
Oh, well, of course, after the Civil War, there was a great effort by the federal government to provide opportunities of education for the freed slaves. And in 1867, there was a school that was constructed here in Cleveland. It was in the proximity of where Oak Grove School is, or Oak Grove Street is today.
Oak Street.
Yeah, Oak Street.
Mm-hmm.
I said Oak Grove. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the school.
Uh-huh.
Oak Street. It was very near the creek that is there.
Which actually was probably the western border for Taylor's Place.
Yeah, I've
Somewhere
heard it
close.
referred to as Dye Creek.
Yeah.
Of course, in the years after
Yes.
with hard.
Actually, it was the Little Mouse Creek.
Yeah, and there was a lot of flooding. The school actually sat on stilts so that they could try to keep the school from being flooded regularly. But that was the first sort of official black school in Bradley County. Mm-hmm. I've got letters from the principal that served there. He was a legless. He actually lost his leg during the Civil War. He was from Indiana, and was
he a white man?
He was a white man.
Okay.
He was a former white lieutenant in the Civil War who had been wounded at the Battle of Shiloh, and he came to Cleveland and served as the principal of this school.
Have never heard that, Brian.
Yeah, he's actually buried in Maryland. He's he ended up. I'm not certain as to why, but he ends up living in Maryland in the latter years of his life and dies there. But the school was in the 1880s torn down. The materials were used to build a new school, which became the College Hill School. At the time, there was no designation of it being called College Hill High School. There was no high school to speak of.
It was just the African American school,
right?
The College Hill,
right?
Okay.
And but that's where it was relocated in the 1880s, and there was a little bit of a fuss. There were some African Americans here that did not want the school moved. They wanted to, in order to close the school, it meant the school year was shortened, and the principal who was serving the time, it meant that he was going to be out of work, out of a job. So there was a little bit of a legal issue over, and some leading African Americans of this community tried to keep the school located where it was. But the argument was that the other location was a better suited facility or place to have a school, and it was moved.
What about the community where Cleveland State's located now? Was that not a big African American self-sufficient community?
It was. There was a school there. It was called the Norman Chapel School that sat right across the street from where Cleveland State is today. I've only been able to find one photograph that shows a very small white building at the time when Cleveland State was first established, that I think is that school, which is today, unfortunately, a parking lot for Cleveland State. But yes.
I mean, they had sawmills there. They had, I mean, it was a self-sufficient community that could take care of all of its own needs.
Yes, and throughout Bradley County, I have been able to find these sort of pockets of African American communities. There was one up near
Henniger Chapel.
It was up near Henniger Chapel, exactly near Charleston. There was another, which I would love to find out more information about if you have any information at all. Apparently, there was an African American community that was in the Waterville area, and there was an African American school called the Waterville School that was there in the early
Oh,
teens and
Deb's going, I
20s.
know something.
Is that the one that built burnt in the
Oh, I don't know.
I think
about,
in the 50s?
I,
There was a
the
wonderful
only-
school that burnt. It might have been in the 30s or 40s.
Okay.
I found in the banner. I think I have a copy of the.
The only information I have on the Waterville School is a list of the teachers that served there during the turn of the century.
And another African American related topic is that on top of the hill above Target is an African American cemetery that's very well maintained.
Okay.
It has a Confederate African American soldier buried there, which is very unique.
Mhm.
And to get to that, you pass Target and you turn into the subdivision, turn right into that subdivision, and just follow the road all the way around to the dead end. And they do not mind you respectfully visiting there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the Moors buried there,
Yeah.
and some other families. But those are.
And then the other community area that was, again, a pocket of community of African American community was in what was called the Beach Springs community, which is sort of almost bordered between Meigs and Bradley County.
Oh.
There was a Beach Springs school.
Beach?
B
Okay.
B-E-E-C-H. But there's a cemetery there that is segregated, and there was a school there that was a black school. But yes, there were many opportunities for African Americans to attend schools throughout the county.
Yeah.
But where these schools were all located,
we don't
do
know.
not know.
You're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. There you can see and hear us, and you can also join the chat room and chat with Deb on the line there. You can call us here at 614-5553. That's 614-5553. We got Debbie Riggs and Brian Reed in here. We're talking about historical markers, not hysterical, but some of them might be hysterical. Historical markers and monuments that are in our area, or should be in our area, or ones that weren't in our area and then are lost. So if you got any questions or comments, or if you think of a place where that Brian, you've been working on the Black history of Cleveland quite a bit, and
Not in recent months, but I have.
but I know you've been doing it. We always encourage listeners, when people start working on that, there are probably tons of history in your shoebox with your old pictures there, and old stories from your grandmothers and grandfathers.
Your grandma's scrapbook.
Oh,
Which
yes.
reminds me, I know there's an effort to try to document many of the restaurant establishments.
Yes.
That's Ron and I have been working on that with
the
Museum Center at
yeah.
5 Points.
And I have never seen a picture of the Manhattan restaurant.
Oh.
Would be great to be able
Which
to
is
find
an African American restaurant.
Manhattan. We'll have to ask the Avery Johnson and Andrew. There was of course, the Ever Ready Cafe, which was their grandmother run that. That's
Yeah.
going to be highlighted in the program. There's 7 restaurants going to be highlighted there. And then he talked about the Busy Bee, which I don't remember also. But
Andrew has. But now we need to,
he has
if
a
you
picture of the
have,
Busy Bee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he has something from the
Oh,
Busy
maybe
Bee.
it was something from
he
the
has
Busy
an
Bee.
artifact from there. But if you have an old restaurant menu or some piece of furniture, pictures, if your family ran a restaurant and you have pictures, you need to go see Sam at the Museum Center at 5 Points.
If you worked in the kitchen and washing dishes and someone took a picture of you and it's at the old Chow Now restaurant, or if
It's important.
Yeah, or at the Grand Lunch.
And they're doing that real soon, so you need to get
Yeah.
down there this week with something.
The Grand Lunch pictures, I've not ever seen a picture of the Grand Lunch. I don't think I've ever seen one. And I think the Osmond family was the one who ran that. And I'm sure some of them are still alive. And we sure would like to see a picture of the outside and inside.
The
and
inside.
Brian, I don't know if it was, I doubt it was open. Wasn't open for use here.
No.
Anyway, when you walked in, you ordered and they put the food on the plate as you ordered. I mean, boom, boom, boom. And of course, they did have other things on there. And their hamburgers were a little different, but very, very good. And so, an open-faced steak sandwich. Oh, boy, now I'm
The
hungry.
only two
God, it's
places-
lunchtime now. Oh, my goodness.
The only 2 places that are still open that they're going to highlight are the Rebel and the Spot.
Right.
And the Spot's the only one that's been continuously open. Well, they closed down for a short period of
Yeah.
time, so I doubt that we can say that anymore. But, Ron, what about Deer in the Waters place?
Well, Gosh, you guys know more about it than I do. It's where Whirlpool, the new manufacturing plant, is sitting, and that was almost Cleveland, Tennessee. It failed by one vote. And that guy wasn't old enough to vote, and that's another story.
That's a whole nother story.
Potts, he was not old enough to vote, but he said he was because he said God had led him to say it was important enough to lie.
To get Cleveland moved west.
Taylor's Place, which where the spring is, here in downtown, what we call downtown Cleveland, was a trading post, and they took a vote where Cleveland would be. It would be either out at during the water where Whirlpool is, or it would be here. So it won by one vote. There was 30 people voted or something like. It was a small amount of people voted in Cleveland there.
Of course, and it was only men over the age of 21 that were allowed to
when
vote.
he wasn't 21, he was 19, I think. But if you notice the railroad coming down south, it gets to where it would have went by during the water place, but takes this big turn and comes through downtown Cleveland. Well, the railroad adjusted to come through the Cleveland also, so there was another reason.
I think that it might have been power and politics and money, but that's just another story,
I'm
too.
sure it is.
But anyway, we would like to see that place marked, and I'm sure if I could come up with the correct verbiage to go on the sign, that Whirlpool would be happy not only to have it on their property, but be happy to help pay for it, I'm sure.
I would think so.
And if you haven't been out there lately, it's kind of funky to see that the end of Michigan Avenue Road's been moved over to a nicer, bigger intersection, I'm sure, to accommodate those big Whirlpool trucks.
The little V's not there anymore. They just zoomed off real quick because there's no cars coming,
Yeah, there's a big red light there.
Yeah, there's
now.
a red light
There's
there.
no more zooming there.
But now, if your organization would like to get involved in saving maybe you have a very historical church. We live
What
next.
about the assembly?
Yes, the Church of God Assembly building, which burned. I remember
believe it exploded, Ron.
Well, I
what
can
kind of fire was it, Ron?
As the policeman called in on the scanner, they said, "What kind of fire?" And he said, "It's a big one."
Send everybody.
It literally lifted the roof off the old assembly building up about 4 or 5 foot. There was 2 police officers standing there arresting the guys who put all the gasoline in it and blew it up.
The guy said, "We might want to move."
And he threw down his thing of Brill cream, and I won't tell you why he threw down the Brill cream because I don't want anybody to try this, but he threw down his Brill cream and all that, and of course they were tried and convicted.
And went to prison. But we have the assembly there on that eastern side of Central Avenue. We have part of the old Stagecoach Road that runs the length of Bradley County that needs to be marked. We have the old Federal Road that comes across Bradley County.
Probably people would put up one for Dooley's.
We have, we have the Mr. Easterly's farm, which was one of Black Fox's farms. We know who lived in the houses down Flint Springs area and who built those houses. Red Hill Valley, the Red Hill Valley United Methodist Church has been in that same location prior to the beginning of Bradley County.
Where Conley Electric was the original Coca-Cola company here in Cleveland.
Yes, it was.
Down on Church Street.
Allen School, the gym is still standing over on the east side of town.
No, where Big Spring School is now, where the juvenile center is, Allen School. We're talking about, there's just... Trevina. There's a school that was early school and ran until about 1970.
It was still a preschool
still
in
the
70s. You've got, what was the one over on Strawberry Lane?
East Cleveland
School.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much. It's almost overwhelming when you get
where
started.
John Cook lived.
Yeah, well, you have Hillcrest Cemetery that started in the 1940s, but that was the first location of the First Baptist Church, was there at that site.
It was called Peach Orchard Hill, and if you look at old maps, one of the roads is called Peach Orchard.
But if your church or your civic group or organization thinks they like you, it's going to cost you about $1,750, and there's some research. It has to be approved by the state. You don't pay it until the state approves it.
I think, as someone here on the phone's just reminded me that part of the Greenway, and I haven't seen it yet because I haven't really been able to get out and walk, but I am now, so Ron, put on your walking shoes.
Oh boy.
I believe Bob George has assisted in
Oh, he has, yeah.
doing the research and the writing of the. There's some research that is marked on the Greenway, and I believe it's on this end.
Yes.
On the end close to the village, and so that's a start there because there were mills on Mouse Creek.
The signs explain the origins of Bradley County. And
I love it.
That's a great thing. Thank you, Bradley County, for doing that.
And I imagine the city of Cleveland, grants, I don't know.
That makes up a little bit for tearing down our beautiful courthouse.
I think they're all dead and gone, Ron.
Oh,
you can give it up.
unfortunately, that was the beautiful courthouse, and they should just build an annex somewhere or just left that as a museum because it was beautiful.
And we could, Wild River was filmed in Charleston.
Yes.
There needs to be some signs there.
It was the first movie ever filmed 100% in Tennessee.
And a lot of it was done in Bradley County.
Or right there in the Charleston area, and of course the house where Sherman stayed in there, and the railroad, the bridges. Gosh, you could talk about the bridge burners, and they tried to burn our bridge or burned it twice here or 3 times.
Yeah.
Bradley County.
Yeah. I was just thinking just now that the 60s seemed. I didn't live in the 60s, so I'm basing this.
I did.
I'm basing this on my, just
I lived in the 60s.
understanding of reading. But the 60s seemed to be a time of much more looking toward the future.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
There was
when Bo Waters came in, we wanted to show people. This is what I've read because I was much too young to been one of the people doing it. But
you lived in the 60s. Don't say you didn't.
I lived in the 60s, but I was more interested in R.C. Colas at that time than the history. But
well, me too. But
the theory is that we need to show ourselves as a progressive community, so that we can get all these brand new industries in here. And we did. Thank goodness we got Bo Waters and we got Olin.
59, the Village Mall being built where we're at today.
And it's very modern looking, which
Right.
this place needs a historical marker of its own. First of all, before it was the Village Theater, it was the Colonial Drive-In
Cleveland
Theater.
High with the dome.
Mm-hmm. And
that was a modern architecture at the time.
You can't find this architecture anywhere, and I can't even imagine the amount of concrete that was poured in this building. There's a spring down in the bowling alley, the old bowling alley, that they pump water 24/7 out of.
The creek used to run somewhere through here.
They kind of straightened it a little bit.
They moved the creek. This was. They also had troops that practiced on this.
Right, that World War I troops would come. The train would come and let the people off, and they'd come and they would do their maneuvers down here. And would camp in this area.
We had a fallout shelter here.
There was a mound behind the village that's now gone. Had an American Legion sitting on top of it, I think, at some point in time. I'm sure the Stagecoach Road either ran through or right around this property. So, but if nothing else, the explanation of the architecture of the Village Mall would be a great marker.
The Reader House which is now Jackson Lake, what we call it.
Yes.
There's another historical site.
We know that people from both sides, I think that shows what the community was going through. Why was it they were fleeing, Brian? The Yankees were coming.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And, they knew that the other forces were coming in, and there were Southern troops here, and they knew that there were going to be trouble. So the townspeople all fled and went out to the Reader's house. So you had Northern supporters.
That was the raid.
And Southern supporters both huddled in the basement of what is now the Jackson House to survive the war. And so we know it was there during the Civil War.
Right.
It was a beautiful red brick structure.
Right.
That was made from that clay that came out of the Candies Creek, and it kept letting water seep in. So someone somewhere along the way sealed it white, is why it's painted white now. We have a picture of it from the 1940s prior to its renovation, that it had big gas lamps hanging on the side of it, and it was red. Pretty interesting to see. Of course, then you have Blythewood Farm, and Miss Neal's farm. That farm has been winning. I mean, it's big in the world of horses. And not only that, you got Herr Conrad's cabin there.
It's like Benabout Farms. Well, that was Chief Benabout, and there's 3 creeks come together there that forms Candies Creek. So it's a pretty historical place. It's amazing how much history there is in Bradley County and in every community. Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, I was calling to let you know, this is Dave Conley.
Yes,
Hey, Dave.
There was a Jerry Branch school in the south end of Bradley County too. Was you ever?
There sure was, and I know exactly where that's at, and it does need a marker. You're absolutely right.
That's at 940. That street address is 949 Straw Hill Church Road.
Straw Hill Church Road.
You know who used to tell me they went to the Jerry School is Mr. Robert Easterly.
Robert Easterly was born across the street from where the school was.
Yeah, that house has got to be 100 years old.
Yes, and my brothers, the twins.
Yes.
I also were born at that house.
Well, that just deserves a marker right there.
Well,
now, I know the house across the street has been, it looks like it's been built on a lot to me. Do you know who originally built that house and when? No.
My mother and father owned that property at one time, no.
And but Robert, Bob Easterly, I think would occasionally go by there and just stop and visit with whoever happened to be living there and tell them that he was born there. But I'm sure that he was born this November. It would have been 100 years ago.
Okay, the hand-dug well for the Cherry Branch School is still on the site next to my mom's house. In fact, we used water out of the well for a while. Then finally, we put a pump in the branch.
Do you have any idea why it's called the Jerry Branch?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, tell me that story.
Well, because Cherry Branch runs through there.
Okay.
That's where we get water from. That's called Cherry Branch.
Okay.
How did it get its name? The
we
branch.
don't know.
We used water out of the branch until we got public water.
Yeah. Well, I used to live over off of what's now Keith Valley Road, and I have been told, my dad told me, that the road where it takes a sharp turn there at the Jerry Branch School, you could go straight through and go all the way over to our old home place.
Comes back to the Stone Reagan Road on the other side. There is still an old bridge down there on that road.
I sure would like to see that because my dad used to talk about walking and riding mules on that road.
Across the Coahoma, you could go in. My brother LeBron lives there now.
Yes.
You could go in there, and the old roadbed is still actually going all the way back to where the old bridge is still there. The steel is still across. There's just a rock foundation.
Mm-hmm.
The steel is across the Coahoma Creek.
Well, I'll tell you, it was quite a day when I finally found a map that showed that road connecting through, because my dad used to say, well, this road didn't used to end. It used to go all the way over into the Red Hill Valley.
There's a lot of history on that road.
What's that?
A lot of history on that road. A lot of things happened at that bridge. Someone got killed down there earlier in times.
What? How did they?
Names, but I get it mixed up,
Yeah, I understand that too. Well, we appreciate you calling so much, but that's the kind of things, these little communities, their history is going to get lost if we can't get it preserved.
Right.
Do you have a picture of the Jerry School?
Ma'am?
Do you have a picture of the old Jerry School?
No, ma'am.
Well.
And I don't know anyone that would be left that would have any idea of, it might have been a one-room school. I don't know anything about it. My mom would have probably, but she's passed, So.
Yeah. Well, now, where do you live?
I live on Petite Road.
Petite Road. You live on the old Clayton farm?
Yes.
Okay.
My mom, of course, was a Petite.
Okay. And we just lost Mr. Petite at 100 years old, didn't we?
Yes, ma'am.
I remember that now. Well, now you have a brother that lives over on Red Hill Valley Road.
That's Hubert. He lives in the J.O. Renter farm.
Yes.
It used to be J.O.'s farm.
How old do you think that house is?
I don't know, but I know it goes back. The Chaseys lived there back in the times.
Yes, they did. And the Steels lived there before that, I believe.
Possibly.
Yeah. I would say that it's at least pre-Civil War.
I have no knowledge.
Okay. Do you know where the old Methodist Church South was there that Reverend Steele operated?
No, ma'am.
Okay. It's on the Owenby farm. All that's left's the old foundation, but I was just curious if you knew about it. Mr. Oscar Renner.
Yes.
I interviewed him. Gosh, he had to be up in his 90s. He's passed now. But he told me that under your brother's farm there in the Red Hill Valley, that there's a whole lake of water underneath that farm and how it provided water for his dairy farm.
Right.
And that the supply never went dry.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for calling.
Okay, have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Well,
Let me say it. I love our callers.
you got any last-minute other places you want? What was the theater on the other side of Emmett Street, the Black Theater, the Lincoln?
There was a Lincoln Theater.
Where was it at?
It was, I don't know exactly where on East Inman Street it was. I have a feeling that it may have been in the Shepherd Hall, which was owned by, his name was Jefferson Shepherd, J.J. Shepherd. But there was a Shepherd's Hall, and I think that the theater was in his building, along with a restaurant and other. It was a very large building. I have a picture of the building.
Of course, we have the Roth House. We have where the coffin factory used to be.
Oh, the coffin factory is.
We have the mill, the flour mill, has been there for as long as you can find stuff about the railroad track. I think it came in there pretty much at the same time that the railroad track did. It's pretty amazing, the amount of history. And, of course, we had a train wreck of our own down in the Black Fox community. Matter of fact, there was, an explosion of a train up in Tasso. Those things, I'm sure the community would love to read about those.
If we could ever figure out exactly where that train wrecked at.
Yeah, that's true.
No one, there's
theories.
There are theories of the grade and all that. And, I've got some friends who are metal detectors who studied and
They're
studied.
metal detectors?
They're metal detectors, yeah.
Well,
So they use metal to detect. They use those to go detecting. I'll get that right in a minute.
This
Anyway.
is one of those shows that creates more problems and more questions than we had answers today. And it's going to take some really enthusiastic, dedicated folks to apply to get some of these places marked. It's going to take some money, and it's going to take a lot of time,
Then
but
you
we
got-
really need to do it.
Deb, you have any other place that you can think of off the top of your head real quick?
Wow.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, isn't it?
It is overwhelming. There are so many places that does hold significance in the history. We talked about Blue
Sugar
Springs,
Creek,
Sugar
and
Creek,
Union Hill, and
every
Red
corner
Hill.
of the county and in between.
Yeah.
And, the cemeteries, the Sugar Creek, the historical grave houses that we have here. I'd like to say thanks to Brian and Debbie Riggs and Debbie here who help keep history alive here in our community. They do an unbelievable job. I do appreciate their efforts. Let's get this one last call. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron. Tom Rowland.
Hey, Tom Rowland. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Good morning, Debbie.
Hey.
Brian. Everybody. Good morning.
Everybody.
Just thinking, Ron, you may have already talked about it, but I was just talking to Steve Hartline, and we were thinking about where Charlie McKenzie was born. It's the location where the museum is right now.
Well, would that be to keep people away, to warn them about it, or to just for the history part of it?
You have to use your own judgment.
Yeah.
And incidentally, somebody told me that Thaxton was building another store, which will make 3 stores.
Yes.
The one, the Big Apple was open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah, we just missed
And we were there Tuesday.
But then the one we went into, they just got the new toilet in with instructions how to use it. They're open 7 days a week. I don't know if you do that or not.
Yeah.
And I noticed that was their post office, too. There was a mailbox outside.
That's right. They had the boxes inside for the Postal Service.
Yeah, you could mail a letter, buy a lottery ticket, go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee. It was a one-shop stop.
Well, I like the sign. It said there's a handle on the left side of the tank. You push it down, it flushes the toilet.
Handwritten, yes, it was there. I saw it, yeah.
Yeah, and then you could buy 2 eggs or 1 egg or 3 eggs. You just reached in the big barrel there and got whatever you wanted.
Well, I didn't see that.
I saw the potatoes.
Potatoes.
Yeah, some had sprouts and some didn't have sprouts on them.
Mm-hmm. Some were for planting, some were for eating.
Yeah, how does Debbie Riggs feel about that trip?
Oh, it was an awesome trip.
She was like queen for the day, wasn't she?
I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah. Everybody's hugging on Debbie, but I thought it was a great time.
I had a great time.
And it's great marriage between our two cities there, and I enjoyed spending some time with the mayor there. Every once in a while, it's okay.
I enjoyed spending time with you and Debbie. We got a lot of press too. I don't know if you got the latest from Allen last night. Front page of the Roanoke paper. I pulled up online and read a little, but they had the whole jump page was a full page. And Wall Street Journal, several papers had it.
Wall Street Journal.
And even the Lynchburg, Virginia paper had it too. We got big time
I
there.
mean, there were two TV stations there, and I don't know how many newspapers. Cleveland Banner was there also.
Oh, I'm sure they were all over the place there. The only place we didn't get any coverage was the Times Free Press. Chattanooga.com had. Well, I sent them some pictures. They had a pretty good story. And let's see, I believe it's Tempe, Arizona. Had coverage of it.
It's amazing sometimes the people that pick things up. I thought it was really funny though that we were by the new Big Apple thrift store that wasn't open.
Open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
And that was I don't know. I was looking all the way as far as I could look in both directions, and there wasn't another building anywhere.
No, there's two. They built that third store. That'll really help downtown. And I thought it was great. They had the speakers up and everything. And apologize because they didn't have electricity, but they had the plugs hanging there. It looked pretty good.
I was kind of curious about that because there was a podium and two big speakers, and I thought, why didn't somebody think to bring a microphone? I didn't think about them not having electricity.
Or a generator or something. Yeah. But it looked good. They treated us nice up there.
It was fun.
And the Delegate Austin, which they call their state representative's delegate in the Commonwealth, I sent him an email, and I thanked him for his hospitality in coming, and he answered back, and he said he wants to come to Cleveland. He'll holler at us.
Well, good.
So we'll just have another old reunion when
there we go.
Gets here.
We'll take him to the spot for a hamburger.
Better take him to the Bald-Headed Bistro.
Oh, okay.
That's all I just want to tell you. Enjoyed being with you guys.
Bye,
thank
Tom.
you.
All right, folks, we're running a little bit over here, but that's what happens when the mayor
Final
calls.
word. Tell us once again the dedication.
Oh, June 13th at 2 o'clock.
Who do they call if they want to make reservations?
They call Tim McCoy. And Debbie has the phone number.
She has 18 notes over here.
Call Tim McCoy at 202-550-2369.
And the address is 7723 Dalton Pike.
All right, so if you're
It's
interested
the
in
big
that,
white house on the left when you get fairly close to the Georgia line.
June 13th, 2 p.m. Debbie Riggs.
I'll be there.
Book the day Cleveland cried is at the Museum Center
Museum
here in
Center.
Cleveland.
9 points.
And I don't know the cost. Do you know what the cost is on it?
$19.99.
$19.99.
Is what was on the ones that we had at the ceremony.
Right, and it all that money I understand goes to the museum.
It
so
does.
That's
It goes to the museum, so that's nice.
So thank you, and so thank you for right now. You got any final comments?
No final comment.
Deb?
See you next week.
The one thing is, if you got stuff for our museum exhibit about restaurants and eateries here in Cleveland, please bring those by the Museum Center or give them a call. Sam is the guy you need to talk to down there. He's the curator. Every week, folks, we tell you, get your pictures from out of the shoe boxes and the drawers and get your grandmother and grandparents and aunts, uncles, and help them tell us who's on those pictures and save the history. That's when we do it. We'll always remember Pearl Harbor, but Deb.
Well, we remember Aunt Pearl. See you guys next week.
All right, bye-bye, y'all. This has been Old Town Cleveland. Next week, it's going to be talking about the Trail of Tears. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all north of here in a shopping mall.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Check into cash. The cash you need.